Hi everyone, welcome to our live stream today for the Glazers Out Protest that happened today. Dada is joining, and we're going to be chatting about the Glazers Out Protest generally, about everything. Dada, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, man.
Okay, let's see how we can take this. So essentially today, we'll be talking about the protest that happened today at Old Trafford. For anyone who hasn't seen, it was a scheduled fan protest that happened at Old Trafford and disrupted the Manchester United Liverpool game today. And essentially, the game got postponed because of this. And today we'll be chatting about a couple of things about fan protest, because there are a couple of discussions that's going online. If it's effective, if it should happen, why it happens, and what are the other means or ways to communicate it. So before we start, let me give some very quick context about what this protest was. This protest is directed by United fans, specifically regarding the Glazers' ownership, around their leverage buyout, how the club has been run, so far, and just generally how United has underperformed as an asset during their 16 years ownership. They bought United in 2005 for a combined amount of 790 million through an LBO called a leverage buyout. For those who don't know what a leverage buyout is, essentially they bought the club on debt against future assets of the club. Pretty much, just they are gambling on the fact that the club is going to make enough money to where they can pay off the debt, and the owners can keep all that profit, dividends, and all of that. So that's a simple way to just explain it. As you're joining in, for everybody watching us, please do us a favor. If you're on YouTube, hit the like, share, subscribe button to support us. If you're on watching through Facebook, just try and look for us, Footy Fantasy. I'll post that link. It's FWTI Fantasy, one word, on YouTube to like, share, and subscribe. I see comments already flying in. Before we look at the comments, Dada, tell me, as a Chelsea fan from outside looking in, let's start with you. What are your thoughts about the protest? I know you had a lot of comments.
Yeah, so typically, I think, first of all, generally you and I tend to agree on most issues. And I think this is one where I think we have different views. And also, so I'm just going to start off with that. And also, too, I think, first, we're going to start off with the protest. So let's kind of start off with the protest, right? A lot of that has to do with, there's a lot of privilege going on. And I don't mean that in a, like racial privilege. I mean in privilege as in when you have everything going in your favor, when all your needs are met, you can't complain, right? Yeah. So first of all, I don't even want to call it a protest because what we saw was criminal. You had fans going into the stadium, being disruptive. I heard they actually injured some cops. So there was some very unruly behavior that went on today that needs to be addressed. So first of all, so let's look at it. Let's first of all address the criminal part of what happened today. That was completely uncalled for. It was unruly. It was a criminal act. I feel like at the end of the day, some people need to go to jail. They need to make an example of these individuals who have committed this atrocious crime. So first of all, so there's an element of that. That just needs to be addressed right off the bat. I mean, it was cute when we were flying banners about Wenger out and Lampard out, and people were tweeting about that. Okay, yeah, that was cute. But now it's not getting to. We're almost condoning hooliganism in the light of, if you're dissatisfied about the direction your club is going, it's okay for you to be a hooligan. That is not acceptable. That is not right. That is wrong ethically. In any way you want to slice and dice it, that whatever happened today should never happen again. So that is just we should just address that. And then let's take off. Fans are really passionate. This is how they're showing their passion. You can do a lot. You can commit a lot of crimes in the name of passion, and it doesn't excuse it. So we need to sort of draw the line between okay, yeah, you're a fan and you can do XYZ because you love your club so much. I mean, that's how people justify terrorism, right? Oh, it's out of passion and it's okay. No, it is not okay. So I think once we can collectively agree on, I'd like to at least see 5 or 6 people go to jail just to make an example. Because the next thing you don't want is 2 weeks down the road, Chelsea fans are like, you know what, we're going to do the same thing because we're passionate. No, screw that. No, just all right. No. So we've addressed like the criminal part of it, and and we're gonna have a lot of back and forth today. One of the first things that we just probably need to address is the complicated nature of fandom. Now,
Okay.
every club is constantly battling with one thing: are we an altruistic organization that exists to satisfy fans, or are we an organization that exists to make money? Now, one of
Okay.
the problems that makes football ownership very, very hard is those who are responsible for your revenue, well, your fans, right? It's kind of like your customers. They also have a say in the direction of the club, right? So I think that's a very, very conflicting interest. So you kind of go back to your United fan, right? United has an obligation to make sure that the product that they provide makes you happy, and that is how they in turn generate revenue. So that's a very, very complicated relationship, right? So what happens if United is making money, right? They're generating really good revenue, but you're not happy. How does that work? Do they have to make the fans happy first, or do they have to make money first? So before we kind of go into that old convoluted situation, I think first of all, if we can both agree that what happened today was wrong. I mean, I was looking forward to enjoying a nice game of football, then all of a sudden this happened. So I think once we kind of address that, and we can then move into the topic of um, how should fans exercise their right, and then we could then go into deeper topics of why do football clubs exist? Is it a business? Is it there to win trophies? Is it there like who are the stakeholders? And when you have conflicting interests between stakeholders, how do you make all of them happy? And then also too, I mean, greedy ownership, how does that work? So I feel like
There are
I'm
multiple layers to this.
I'm sorry.
There are multiple layers to this, right?
There are multiple layers, right? And also too, I mean, should football clubs exist to make a better world? I don't know. So those are part of the things we'll probably need to address. But I guess we could talk about the criminality of the incidents, and then we
Yeah.
can then move on to okay, um, how should how should fans exercise their rights? Because I'm not fans do have a right, but
Okay.
how should they exercise that? And I have some ideas, and we could leave it out. Let's see what people think. I'd love to hear what you think, and we could go from there.
Okay. Before I say my comments in response to that, especially the criminality part, let's take comments. The first comment is from Peter. So Chelsea don't have real fans now. Why is he here? You got this. Plastic. We have to bring the plastic people. We have to bring them.
No, no, it's actually good, and we don't have real fans, right? So maybe that's why we don't have issues.
Akoni says, "Good evening, please. This is not Arsenal podcast. Who cares about good evening?" Akoni. Yep, leverage buyout. That's what Hicks and Gillett did to Liverpool. Almost put us in administration and relegation worry. I want to assume that's Ola or maybe a Liverpool fan at least for sure. I'll move past that. Someone's laughing at Ola. Someone says, "I promise not to be here to agitate." Laugh out loud. Okay, you can agitate all you want. Chuki says, "Today's passion and sense of entitlement dance the dangerous dance and it will overshadow the legitimate process." That is true. Spray Doyan says, "There's a slight difference with fans and customers. Fans are on a higher platform than customers because they are not just consumers." It's a good point.
That's a good point.
Ola says, "Chelsea fans already protested and caused delay of the game a couple of weeks ago. Check out, come out, calm them down. Chelsea fans got praised for it. It didn't they? That's correct. That is very correct. That's kind of what turned the whole Super League conversation." Someone says entitlement, privilege, and everything else were at the root of today's event, and the roots of them are for more socio-economic roots. United was merely the catalyst for this outburst, and to criminalize them for an entity over their irresponsible ownership or local climate for not being proper manage is madness. So did they vandalize, break in, fight, and injure the police?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I think he's responding to somebody saying they could.
Oh, I
issue
see.
about fans should be addressed. I agree with that. Okay.
Sorry, you were kind of making a point about whether they should be criminalized or not. I think you should finish their point, and then we could get on how should fans exercise their right.
Correct. Good point. So obviously, I said it multiple times, but I feel like football discussion has gotten into this world of I must get a W, I must win, I must without putting context in things. I obviously do not condone violence. My thoughts are, and I said I'm 100% in support of the protest because there's a lot of context and background to why I say I'm in support of the protest. Right. Since 2005, especially from 2010, the Green and Gold campaign started by United fans regarding Glazers' leverage buyout ownership. Right. They made so many protests, tried to engage. Glazers did not engage. There were very peaceful protests at games. I specifically remember the game against AC Milan in 2010. Didn't lead to anything. They started up a fans forum to the Glazers. They did not engage. None of them did. I think Woodward attended one meeting. Nothing happened from there. They set up a Phoenix Club. Still, there was no engagement. There's been multiple peaceful protests about this. Now, again, I want to make it clear, I'm not condoning violence. All I'm saying is this was inevitable. This was always going to happen. This has been a build-up consistently of an ownership that has mismanaged an asset called Manchester United. Of course, the first 8 years, right, we were successful. That had nothing to do with the Glazers. That was just simply because of the genius of Sir Alex Ferguson. So Alex Ferguson, David Gill retires. The Glazers continue mismanaging the club. They spent over $1 billion, right? And they spent over $1 billion, and throughout that process, United has not come close to winning the league once. Apart from that, United has an asset. Old Trafford, our training grounds, Old Trafford, the stadium is dilapidated. They are not investing in it, right? So before we get to the ownership, Manchester United is becoming a gradual declining asset. And the only way protests like this was going to make an impact was for it to affect the brand. That's why, for example, Chelsea, the reason they come to the turnaround is, what's the Chelsea ownership? Chelsea's ownership, Abramovich has links to Russian mafia ties. He's pretty much using Chelsea to improve his status in the UK. He's not in the sports washing realm yet, but he's kind of in that realm because trying to improve status. And the most important thing for Abramovich is to be on the good side of the fans. If he loses that,
I get a feeling that this is one of those discussions where we're probably going to go back and forth. And I'm trying to write down your points. So you just made a point there. You said, so first thing I'm going to ask you first is, when the Glazers bought the club in 2010.
2005.
Right? 2005, sorry. Mm-hmm. Up until Sir Alex Ferguson left, you guys won trophies, right? So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a very quick question. Would you trade, and people can chime in here, and I hope we don't go back and forth to where we lose track of what we're trying to discuss, but would you trade club profitability for trophies? Would you guys as a fan, sit, I don't know, where Burnley is, but year in, year out, you guys are making 10x on your return? Or if you, and this is hypothetically speaking, if you only had to choose one, profitability or trophies, what would you pick?
I think both of them they go hand in hand. They should go hand in hand. Right?
So let's assume they don't. You know what I'm saying? Because you could, because we have seen some clubs who have invested a lot and they don't get a return for the investment. So what really makes football very, very tricky is, and Arsenal has proved this, you can be a profitable club and not win trophies if you manage your books right.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
So my question to you as a fan is, in an hypothetical scenario, if you could only pick one, if you could only pick, winning the trophies, right, and you just barely breaking even, or would you want to be profitable? I know what I mean.
No, sporting objectives. That's what the fans. That's what we care about. We care about the sporting objectives, trophies, the memories. That's what we care about.
So could it be that the reason why folks are angry is because you guys are a club are used to winning things, and all of a sudden y'all not winning? Then you guys are like, oh, it must be the owners. Could that be it?
It's an addition to it. I think that's the people that are not United fans who don't understand the history of this protest. do not understand why. That's a symptom. That's like a symptom of everything that's happened. These protests have continued and started again. I reminded with 2010. Manchester United was the dominant force in England in 2010, the green and gold. This protest started because of leverage buyouts, right? Before the Glazers took over 2005, Manchester United has $0 in debt, $0 in debt. And they took us over and they borrowed close to 500 million in debt from loans, bonds, all of it. In fact, when it got to 2010, the debt had risen to almost 700 something million. That is when the green and gold started. Like, this is crazy because like fans understand, because all of these fans are smart businessmen too. They understand what this could mean. And I'll give you use Hicks and Gillett as an example, right? Hicks and Gillett took over Liverpool, leverage buyout, right? Just right after the post-financial recession in 2007, they took it over. 9, the recession hit the world. Guess what happened? All the boom that they expected didn't happen, and it tanked. And they were in trouble because banks started calling their loans because they could not refinance the debt. And Liverpool were on the brink of administration. This is Liverpool, the biggest club in England in the 80s and early 90s, were going into administration because of this so-called leverage buyout. So that is the root cause of all of this. Before you now start adding trophies and all of that, and people are listening, that's where all of this came from. It's not because, you can't say because we are not winning. Obviously, when you are winning, it quietens down the protest, but this protest has continued, and that is what's leading to all of this, plus the Super League and all of that, right? So let me answer your question. I do not condone violence and what's happening. And if those people are arrested, that is fine. I'm just saying this level of protest, right, had to get this level of protest. Because think about it, Dada and everybody watching. I think they said there were like 10,000 fans there, 5,000, I can't remember. The 20,000 people did not sit together and say, hey, you know what, we're going to get there, we're going to break cameras. No. What has happened is there are a bunch of hooligan sections who take advantage of protests like this to carry out their own individual actions. What I'm saying is this level of protest that disrupts a game needed to happen because it hits the brand. These organizations like Manchester United or franchise, if you want to use that American sports name, the thing that is most important to them right now, the only thing the fans can do right now to hit are two things, right? Merchandise. They don't buy merchandise, or they do something that hits the brand, because that's what affects and makes the owner see, especially if it's a continuous thing. When people make comments like, oh, do not attend games, that's not going to work, because guess what's going to happen? It's a global brand. If you go out, if you drop off your season ticket, somebody else picks it up immediately. That's what's going to happen. And if you say you pay season tickets and you don't show up, they've already got their money, in the sense. They've got their money. That's what's going to happen. So you have to do things that either hit the brand or you don't buy merchandise, because that hits, the profit. So how should fans exercise their rights? Go ahead. Let's move on to that.
So okay, let's move on to how fans should exercise their right. And the first things first is, let's start off by, okay, you almost have to, so football has morphed from a whole bunch of friends drinking beer together and starting a club because, we all hung out together on Sunday, and we're going to start a club called Fandom Atlantic in 1861, and our buddies are going to get together. So football has grown, astronomically. So back then, right, it was easy for the fans to be owners, right? Let me see, I wrote this down. In 2007, when Liverpool fans tried to get together to buy the club, that failed, right? And the reason why it failed was because it was such a huge investment that direct ownership is not possible. So, okay, so let's kind of go through how can fans exercise their right. So the first thing is you can have a supporter group, right, that has a voice. Like, you don't have a direct ownership, but you have a seat on the board, right? So that's kind of like, okay, let's just say United has this supporters group, they have a seat on the board. They don't own equity in the company, but they have a seat and they can vote on board issues. So that's one way. Now, under that model,
like buying and Dortmund like that.
Yes, that's kind of like one way. Another way is like you do what Arsenal is doing, right? They have an Arsenal trust and they own like, X amount of shares. It's not a lot. It's maybe 6%, but that's another way. Another way you could do what Chelsea does, right? Like the club is owned by Roman, but the pitch, Chelsea's pitch, is owned by the fans, right? And that's why it's been really hard for Roman to move the location. So the physical asset that is Chelsea is owned by Roman. Chelsea pitch owners owns the pitch. So that's another model. You could do direct ownership, which is what they do in Germany, right? In the direct ownership, Bayern is owned by like 150,000 fans, and they own majority of the club, right? And you could do like the democratic method that they do in Barcelona. So those are all different ways you can do it. And you can do what we do in England, where an entity owns the club and fans have no rights. Now, the fundamental issue you're going to run into is this, and this is where no one's ever answered the question is, why do football clubs exist? I'm talking about now. If a football club is a corporation and you go with, you look at Google for an example. Google has board of members. You buy shares in Google. If you own a majority share, your vote is directly proportional to your share, right? The reason why you cannot do that in football is because your fan base, the people that you cater to, even another problem too is like fan bases are not they're not homogenous. You look in our group, for example, you have like 8 different Chelsea fans saying different things at different times of the week. So if you put a whole bunch of us in the room and say, you know what, we want you guys to vote on an issue, how the hell are they going to come to a consensus? Right? So that's one of the problems is, first of all, you have to address that, right? And second of all, too, you also have to make profit. So if a whole bunch of Chelsea fans say, you know what, this year, we don't want to focus on the Champions League, we want to focus on FA Cup because we've not won it in a while. And the FA Cup doesn't pay you as much, but guess what? That's what the fans want. Is that what you're going to do? So every model that you come up with has ups and downs, right? There's some flaw in the issue. And everyone always hails the German model where fans own the club. Look at what's going on in Germany. Look at what's going on in Germany. Bundesliga is becoming more and more irrelevant. Dortmund almost went into a bankruptcy and they had to be saved by buying. That's another issue for another time. So now going back to the question, how should fans exercise their right? My personal belief that I think would work best is if you have fans that they have some sort of voting right in the club, right? When you have major issues, like, the way you have, shareholders meetings and fans can actually vote, right? Okay, for example, not operational things. Like, okay, you want to move the club, you want to, before you buy the club, I think fans should have some say. But the problem with that is this. When you don't have skin in the game, if it's not your money, it's hard. You and I can sit there and say, oh, Chelsea should do X, Y, Z. But if someone tells me, yo, Dada, we want you to back this decision with 2% of your net worth, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know, right? So that being said, I feel like fans who want to be able to vote in decisions of the club should have skin in the game. There has to be some sort of like financial thing that ties you to that decision. So that way, when it goes south, you feel the pain. You know what I'm saying? Now, the old model of fans coming together and doing this, it can work. But right now, these clubs are worth 700 million, close to $1 billion. It's a lot of money. That's the problem. It's a lot of money that individuals cannot just buy shares in the company or buy shares in the club and make decisions. Okay. Lastly, I think, so let's just assume if the money route is not going to work, I think having a, a coalition of fan base who are more, who are more sophisticated, who understand how these decisions are made. I think that would be better. When you have a model like that, the fans don't necessarily have to put in money, but they can actually say, you know what, we're going to vote for the president and we're going to vote for this person, and this person or this group would sit for us on the board. So I think that is a model that can work. So what that would look like is, every year or maybe every 3 years, Chelsea will vote for like a committee. And, there'll be certain issues that this committee can address on behalf of the fans, right? And the question then too is, another problem is, do I get a vote similar to John Kerry, whose great granddad has been watching Chelsea for like years, or does their vote count more than my vote? I don't know the answer to that question. But I think this old fantasy that, fans have to sit on the table and make decisions because they love the club as much as the owners, that shit ain't gonna work. Not when there's money involved. You got to pay to play. Simple as that. So so in summary, sorry for going around. I think the best way is you can have non-equity holders who they have a sit on the board, and fans can vote on what they want, and they use that committee as sort of a funnel to get the point across.
So I kind of agree with what you're saying. So Manchester United, for example, let me use the one I'm very familiar with. They have like a Manchester United Supporters Trust Foundation that they
MUST.
started all these things. You said what?
It's MUST.
Yeah, yeah, they have one, and they tried several times to like talk to speak to the Glazers, like Ed Woodward, and all like requests never leads to anything. Especially like in recent times regarding like transfers, director of football, structure, all of these things, and until recently that we hired some guy who was head of like development to become a director of football now, and now Ed Woodward is leaving. So in my opinion, I think one of the ones you mentioned is probably the closest to the solution. Regarding how fans can exercise their rights, where because so for example, Red Knights requested to buy a percentage share, from the Glazers, and the way Glazers set up the controlling rights, right? They have Class A and Class B shares, right? The Class B shares are the controlling rights shares. That one's not up for sale. They control 100% of that one. The Class A shares, they did IPO a couple of years ago to raise funds. When they start, anytime they want to refinance the debt, the bonds, they use the Class A shares, right? So they let other people have that, but all the controlling rights, decision making, they 100% control that. And the Red Knights requested recently that some of those Class B shares should be allowed to be sold to the fans as a startup. That the Glazers can still retain majority of it. So let's just say, I'm not going into details of what their financial request was, but I think they are requesting for like 20-25% of control of that Class B shares, and they'll pay for it, but they're asking for a discount. Now, that part, when it comes to discount, that's the part that, that might be a fantasy, but that's a start, right? Obviously, like why should we sell the discount? Because it's a business. I get that. So that's the part. I think some method like that, where the fans, using Manchester as an example, are sitting on the board, funds are in like the Red Knights, their funds are part of it, and they can have some sort of say rather than this method. Because again, I keep going back to the fact that I think people are overestimating football as a business. I say this because I think football is going to get to the point, a cap limit regarding all this projected revenue that's going to come into football. And if people are not careful, right, then they hit that limit to get to the point where they'll be pretty much making no more, like wages, expenses, and cost is going to like cap off at some point if they continue at this rate, because the player wages have gone crazy the last couple of years, and the amount of revenue, especially COVID impact, which is going to last for a couple of years, right? Because most people have not posted, results of the COVID impact, because now we've had a full year of no fans. Match day revenue, right? Match day revenue is a big part of the revenue. It's part of the three sets of revenue that clubs make, which is match day, broadcast or TV rights, and commercial deals. Obviously, commercial deals is the biggest, part of it. But match day revenues has hit most clubs. Right? Say, for example, now I'll give you Manchester United 2020 results, financial end of year results. For match day revenue only went down by 19%. I remember 2020, we had 3 months of no fans. I think it was 3 months, 4 months. It was from like March. It was 3 months of football of no fans. Now, just imagine what's going to happen when the 1 year is. We're talking 100% no match day revenues that's going to hit the club right now when it comes out, right? And even next season, I don't think August, September clubs are going to 100%. It's going to be tiered approach, 25, 30, whatever. So I think that's something that could work, because people are overestimating this idea that football revenue is just going to like keep growing like exponentially. I don't think that's the truth. Let's go to the questions. So Oga Kwame, the questions kind of answered regarding the rights. Peter says Glazers were not in charge when we won the treble. That is correct. We're owned by Michael Edwards, the Edwards family. Or I said trophies every time for me. I didn't fall in love for both chess spreadsheets and bottom line. That's correct.
Hold on, though. Sorry, though. Let's go back to Ola's question. So everybody's okay, yeah, trophies for me every time. I didn't fall in love with football. So I'm trying to look for a really good analogy here. So it's like someone telling me, look, I love a good steak. You know what I mean? Like the reason why I want to eat steak is just because steak is great. And I'm telling you, well, in order for you to have a good steak, you need a good grill. In order for you to need a good grill, you need a good cow. Trophies don't just automatically appear. right? The reason why you have trophies inadvertently is so people have forgotten this. The reason why folks like you and I are talking about this is because there's a lot of capital invested in football. If capital were not invested in football, guess what? Football would be like underwater polo. How many kids want to play underwater polo? I don't know anybody who want to play underwater polo. So the popularity that we're enjoying, the reason why he's wearing a Liverpool shirt is because over the years, someone has invested capital to make this thing happen. So I think the idea that you can have one without the other, it's cute. It's just cute. So
I actually think it's the reverse. I think it's because of football, right? That it became like financially popular or financially valuable to invest that much capital into the popularity of football. Yes, I think it's
but the invested capital is also what blew it up. It's also what blew it up. Like one thing we like to forget is if you look at the quality of football that's being played today, it's not the same football that was played 40 years ago. It's not the same football that was played 40 years before that, where folks used to like go drink beer and come back. The data and analytics, everything that has come into it. And the reason why we have that is because of economic viability, is because there's money to be made. Right. At the end of the day, the thing that what money does is it's a very good incentive for you to invest. So that's the thing, is like, when we have this whole purism about football, it's trophies for me every time. But man, dude, modern day football is an organization. An organization exists to turn a profit. And I think what makes this so complicated is when Amazon started, Amazon said, we're going to sell books, right? And we're going to do it this way and we're going to make money. Well, the weird thing about football is like, all this identity existed way before the money, right? Like Chelsea had an history, Man United had an history. And when United started, it didn't start as what it is today. So I think what's going on is now we're trying to grapple with the situation that we're in now and how it was 150 years ago. And I'm pretty sure those lads that were in the pub when they started, this United club, or who started Oldham Atlantic, who started all this club, in their wildest dreams, they did not envision what we're seeing today. They did not envision it. There was just like a whole bunch of people like, hey, let's get together, drink some lager, play football, right? They did not envision this. But guess what? This thing has blown up. It is now a company. It is now an industry, right? Whether we like it or not, it is an industry. It is a company. And with every industry, with every company, spreadsheets and bottom line matter.
That's true. How do you let me jump in? So, because I feel like in my opinion, right, Dada, I think the point you are missing is both of them matter. Dada. Football is a different type of business, right? Football clubs have two objectives, especially big football clubs, right? I think all football clubs, right? They have the business objective, like you said, bottom line, profit. They also have a sporting objective. They have to hit the sporting objective.
Yes, I agree. But what do you do? What do you do when those two things? So, like, here's the thing, and it all goes back to stakeholder theory, is when you have a lot of stakeholders involved, what do you do when there is a conflict? That is the thing. Because you know what's weird was I used to make fun of Arsenal fans like a few years ago, and all of a sudden I got it. It clicked to me. I think it was EJ that was talking about it, is, man, Arsenal business model is different. What do you do when there is a conflict? What do you do when, I can either make my fans happy 100% of the time, or I can make this business decision. And also keep in mind too, football clubs operate in the community, right? There are communities who are non-fans, who they're also stakeholders. And let's also forget too, players, they're also stakeholders. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, you say, what do you do? How do you balance it? I think it's not as difficult as that, in my opinion. I'll give an example, right? FSG. That's why I think a lot of Liverpool fans were hot recently, because of what FSG did, like Super League, right? When FSG came, right, they bought the club, they saved, they bought from Hicks and Gillette, and they're going to, administration, all of that. They came with their Moneyball model when they came. Like, this is how they want to run Liverpool, blah, 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 all of that. A lot of people, like, at first were like, oh, they were mad at it, like, because they expect, at that time, I think a lot of football fans did not have enough in-depth knowledge about, like, model of clubs. So FSG model was Moneyball. And they did a lot of things to communicate. They made mistakes. Let's be clear. Wrong director of football, wrong signings. They did all of that. They made mistakes, wrong managers at some point. But one thing they stuck to their model in the sense that it wasn't a leverage buyout. We're going to put our money in. We're going to make sure the club is running based on revenue they generate. How are we going to do that? We're going to make sure we get a manager or target profile of managers that are going to overperform, and the way to build players' profile so that we can sell them for profit. That's how they did with Suarez, with Coutinho, when they got Rogers, then they got Klopp. That's what they did. And they made it clear and they tried to communicate the fans. Trust me, there were a lot of unrest. Liverpool finished 7th, 8th, but they communicated to the fans that this is what they are trying to do and they should be patient. And when the fans started seeing, when they had that title challenge, I think that was very critical. The one they had, the Sleepy G challenge, I think that was very, very critical in getting Liverpool fans on side. Because I think at that point, I was already getting restless with FSG. It was getting there, like, okay, this whole Moneyball thing, people were getting, but when they had that title challenge that time, and it fell apart, and they still stuck to their model regarding the next manager they got, how they, targeted, and they made sure that they connected to the community, right? That's what they did a lot of communal efforts to get on the fan side, to make sure they're targeting light profile. Like, I think what Liverpool did regarding that type of model is the way you can balance it. Now, there are different models. There's the Man City and Chelsea model, which is kind of similar. You have just one person states funding, a club versus room. And I think in that type of situation, that is very different, right? I think Abramovich will always target sporting objective regardless, because like I said, the whole thing is a PR move. It's not a PR move for them. All these guys, it's a PR move. That's why they're in it.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I think.
Yes, I'll tell you why the PR move, because
you could make the same argument. But you could make the same argument that soccer is a PR move for England.
It is. What I'm trying to say is the bottom line for like Chelsea owner, right? All the loan, all the money Chelsea owns is a personal loan against Abramovich. It's not against the club. He's put his own personal money. Like right now, worst case scenario, Chelsea, let's just say hypothetical scenario, Chelsea make no money. The only person that is on the line right now is on the hook is Abramovich, not Chelsea Football Club. So that's a big difference. That's the point I'm trying to make. And the reason why he's doing that is because of the PR status move he's been trying to build in England over the last 2 decades. Same with the sports washing project with Man City and PSG. Let's take comments.
Yeah, let's take comments.
We don't lose all the comments. On MS says, Dada, is that question valid, or how can a successful club not be profitable? I think it's back when
it is. I mean, you don't. I mean, what's the point of football without trophies? A lot of clubs don't win trophies. Actually, I want to say 98% of the football clubs who exist do not win trophies, but they still have fans.
Yep, and that is why you have to like put context. You cannot use one, and that's why I always say that you have to put context. You have to understand the model of the club, what are you trying to achieve, but overarching the two objectives of every football club is what they have: a sporting objective and they have business objective. They have to fulfill this because they are consumers and fans, right?
So great.
Consumers, the stakeholders, consumers most importantly are the fans, right? And the fans are in it for. They're not in it like you said. You use Google and Amazon. Most time, what are we doing? We're buying, tools, items, goods that we need. For football, the reason why we support our clubs is emotional and passion attached to it, right? So that's why football is a different business that has to be looked at differently than other regular businesses. Next comment from Chuki says, there isn't any gray area here. Fans have the right to show their expression any way they see fit, as far as it doesn't involve criminal activity. Oga Kwame says that hypothetical calls for an impossible answer, Dada. The fact is that trophies and profitability cannot be disentangled. But if you were to force me to write down, I'll pick trophies all day because I'm a fan. That is true. Ola says, I just write about Liverpool X and Gillette. That's how easily Liverpool will become in Nottingham Forest 2010. If our fans are sad and taking the nonsense, we're being fed. That's true. Arsenal supporters trust sold all their shares, by the way. Interesting. Yeah, so what they said to Kroenke or who? I personally joined the Spirit of Shankly fan group in that period to fight being put to death and jail. That I said the fan group should maybe ask for representation on the board. Well, Spirit of Shankly asked for that again last week after the ESL fiasco. Yep. Manchester United board, supporters trust asked also. Red Knights asked also. So let me move on. That's just a link. That I think you are beating a different horse. The fans don't necessarily need to own any part of the club before the owners invest in the club. By investment, we're not saying hundreds or millions of dollars in transfers. We're talking about being a fan of the club and not just having a business mindset where the club is a milking cow, cash cow, I guess. The Arsenal fans on the board were either complicit or had no sway in the Super League saga. Yeah, I mean, they were not going to have that. I think the ultimate solution lies in the hands of the government. Fans aren't asking to sit in the Man United conference room. What the government can do is to regulate foreign ownership that seeks to erode the cultural values upon football is built. I
But
agree.
no. But football was built on a very shitty cultural value, though. I mean, I'm sorry. Like for 1 second there, though, Ayo. So
Okay.
let's not like we all like to think that football has been a lot of kumbaya, a whole bunch of people holding hands. No, it hasn't been. Like in the early 1900s, racism was rampant in football, right? There was
Absolutely.
hooligans, there were thugs,
Yeah.
the Celtics, the Protestants in Scotland. There's been a lot of like shitty things done in the name of football, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't buy this whole older than thou. There's this.
Nobody's saying earlier than down, though. I don't think he's saying earlier than down. Like, yeah, I think
but,
that's
like,
different issues, though.
but the idea that football was built on a cultural value and foundation. So I think there may be two categories of clubs that exist now. There are the commercial clubs like the Chelsea, the Arsenals, the Liverpools. Any club in the Premier League is a commercial club. In any of the top divisions in Europe is a commercial club. And then you also have the non-commercial clubs, maybe like a third league club, like I don't know, help me out here. A third league club that
Can't remember, but that's fine. League two, League three, Conference League.
Maybe Barnsley or something. So third league club where they play, they're all the fans go there because their great granddad go there. I think so. Those are the two categories, right? Now, the tough part, and I was reading a quote from a Burnley player, I think like 2 weeks ago, and he was saying, the reason why we play this game is to make fans happy and the satisfaction. Nah, bro, you're getting like what, £80,000 a week? Are you sure that's why you're playing this game? I'm sorry, I cannot sit here and say, oh, I'm a geologist because I so much love drilling rocks, and when people pump gas in their car, it gives me satisfaction. No, that would
be. We keep doing this comparison of like two different. I feel like there are two different professions. Different professions.
I know there are two different professions. But the thing is this, though: if you're a military person, right, or if you're a non-profit person or a firefighter, and you tell me, man, the reason why you jump into fire every day is because you want to save lives, I'm more likely to believe you than you telling me you're a football player getting £90,000 a week and you're doing this for the fans. Yes, you are doing it for the fans, but the £90,000 a week also helps.
It does, but it does. It does.
So the issue is, I feel like as fans, we like to play the beautiful game, fandom, trophy thing when it works for us, and we also like to just kind of ignore that this is a business. And like my whole thing is this: it's complicated. And the reason why I say it's complicated is when money is involved. When this thing is too late, this thing is already a corporation. I'm sorry, it's too late. When there's money involved, it's very hard for us to just ignore that component. I mean, these clubs are like billion-dollar corporations. When you're moving that much weight, I mean, dude, players are getting transferred for like 300 million. Bruh, some companies don't do 300 million in a year. When you're moving that much weight, when Wall Street bankers, hedge funds are involved, you've sold your soul a long time ago. The soul is sold. Ain't no more soul, bro. If you're looking for soul, go watch Braston Town, Fourth League, in Muddy Water. That's where you go find soul. But if you turn on your TV, NBC every morning, and you're seeing all the commercials, soul is gone.
Correct.
And the thing is, sorry, go ahead.
So I agree with you, and I think most rational fans, and I think we kind of talked a little bit about it on the last pod, about the ESL pod. I think most rational fans know this data. Most rational fans who do research, let me add that as an addition. Most rational fans who do research, who pay attention to the financials, the details, they know this, right? Nobody thinks it has to be extreme. Like, oh, it's that you care about the cultural values, and you don't care about the financials. They go hand in hand. What someone like me, and I think other rational fans I know who care about this thing is there has to be like a stopgap. There has to be balance in this thing now. Because what happened to Bolton, I think people forget that Bolton Wanderers in 2005 6 with Premiership Club came made Europa League 6 7. They've gone into administration because of how bad they were run. People need to understand that we know Manchester United is probably not going to go to administration, but guess what? Football is not just about, like you said, football is not just about these 6, 7, 8 super clubs, right? So these things matter. Fans protest matter about leverage buyouts, about ownerships of club, about like finding a balance. I think they matter a lot. And you're right.
Sorry, yeah. Clubs were going into administration before money came into football. I think the notion that fans know what they're doing, it's not something that I agree with. Now, I am 100% with you that it's a delicate balance you have to play. And I'm starting to see your point. Yes, it's not a Google, but also too, it's not a Barnsley third division. You got to balance it out. Yeah. But my fear is that a lot of fans are starting to romanticize this other side of the equation, and they're forgetting that, look, there's a reality, and the reality, it is what it is. Like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. And I remember when Chelsea got bought by Roman, there was this huge uproar, like, man, you can't fire coaches every year. You just don't do that. And it dawned on me, and I'm like, look, if I'm running a company and the manager is not performing, yeah, let go of the manager. And truthfully, I think people probably need to apologize to Roman because they saw the picture much early. And now you don't have long-serving managers in any club again because people are starting to realize, look, if the manager is not working out, switch it out for somebody else. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, I think collectively, we've not come on board with that way of thinking. But maybe 20 years ago, if you were to tell someone, look, I'm going to fire a manager after bad results, they'd be like, no, you should not do that because tradition and culture or managers got to stay. So my point is this. Now, we're starting to see that, look, there are different ways to think about this. Okay. Just because you're a manager doesn't mean the club owes you anything and you have to be there long term, right? Okay. So I feel like we need to start to like redefine how the game goes. And the people that I feel bad for the most, and I will say this is, I consider myself a football, a television fan, right? That's what we're called, right? Those who are on the other side of the waters, we're TV fans, right? Now, maybe if my granddad had been taking my dad to Chelsea games, I will feel differently. So I need to caveat my entire rant with that. Those folks have a much deeper emotional attachment to this than I do. And it might be much harder for them to be rational about how they view the game. So let me just put that out there. And I really love if we can find one of those type of people on a segment like this to get their own take. That's fine. Now, that being said, too, when the money was coming in and folks were winning trophy, like our Chelsea were winning trophy, they weren't complaining. They were cheering. They were enjoying it because what, success is sweet. It's nice.
It is.
Right? So the moment you stop winning, all of a sudden it dawns on you and you're like, I bet you Man City fans ain't complaining about where their success is coming from. They ain't saying like, oh man, the sheiks and civil rights. Because guess what? Success is sweet. But the moment Man City stop winning, you see City fans talking about, oh man, we're this Abu Dhabi people, all this civil rights thing. Because at the end of the day, our soul can be bought, and there's a price. And I feel that it's easier said. It's easier to be like, what, football is always pure, all these things. Man, Chelsea wins. If United wins the league next season, that protest that happened this year, anybody gonna remember?
I don't know about that. And this is what I say. I see your point, yes, and that's why I say they are linked together. There's sporting objectives, the business objectives, and obviously, if a club is hitting its sporting objectives, right, fans are going to they will like it. Like, it will quiet down. It won't be as much. People will quiet down during that period. Regarding like the Man City thing, I think that's going to the realm of like sports washing. I think that's like a full podcast on its own. And yes, Man City fans will complain, but Man City fans are not the only people who should have the right to speak up against that. Because It's because people spoke up, right? That's why they blocked. Remember how the Saudi nation tried to buy Newcastle and they blocked it, And the reality is, all of these things, that's why it's a full podcast. Should have started from the Chelsea to like when what was the Thai owner tried to buy Man City back then, like the fit and proper testing. And I think that's the one thing that the government needs to kind of start, like some level of authority where there'll be like a regulatory unit that will actually be going deeper into like, things like that, like the ownership, why they're trying to buy it, what does it mean? Because if they don't do that, right, from a business standpoint, right, that's the way they can evaluate like their model, what amount do they want to make, like because consumer spending could drop. I'm just saying, I like to Liverpool as an example. When the Liverpool thing, when they did their leverage buyout, that is the biggest one that failed. When they did it there, it was based on the fact that football was going to grow exponentially at certain rate. But guess what happened? The recession hit, then consumer spending dropped, all of this thing dropped, and they went into trouble. Of course, those guys had some financial malpractices, but like they went into trouble. Burnley, and what people are forgetting, Burnley recently got another leverage buyout this season in February with ALK Group, another American group. Burnley has now Burnley has almost 170 million of debt, and they're banking on. Just imagine if Burnley this season have gone south, or next season they get relegated. Do you know what will happen to Burnley? Like I think there should be balance regarding things like this. Let's take comments, then we'll go to like good owners. Dada said, Dada. Other comment says, I think the ultimate solution lies in the hands of government. Fans, I'm asking to see. I think we took that already. Let's go to Ola's comments. Say, Dada, you said we should choose one between trophies and profitability. When I said both go hand in hand, I specifically asked you to choose one. So you cannot move goalposts now, bro. Ola is coming for you, as always. Chicky says this is illegal issue. The Glazers did acquire United illegally. It's privately owned and it's a commercial entity. I think Chicken said legally. If you want to purchase bits of it, it has to be through persuasive dialogue with mutual benefits for both sides. Trying to intimidate and violently wrest control, gain some representation is bang out of order. Nobody said they were trying to bully the Glazers. What I said specifically is they have to do things that hits the brand, and that is the only way the Glazers can. Because for so many years, the Glazers have ridden on United's PR, very careful, well-written PR, and has used that to increase their commercial revenue. So that's what I'm saying. Man, these comments happen multiple times. I think it did. Let me go to the next comment. It's a breakdown of monetary revenue 2020. Deloitte report. Commercial 320 million. Broadcasting match day. So essentially, match day wasn't the big difference. It was broadcast money. After the Champions League and other COVID-19 implication, match day revenue only decreased by 96 million from total revenue drop. I said that correct, and I said it dropped by 19%. And yes, broadcasting is going to drop further. So I never said match revenue was the reason. I said it dropped by 19%. So yeah, that's correct. I've seen that already. Tricky says fans work there. Employees who clean tend to the ground. Some they have been for decades. Then you have so-called fans breaking into their place of work. For some of them, this is not their place of work, so their shrine, which was declared today by some entitled idiots.
That's the point I didn't even think about. That's a good point.
No, that's true. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. All I'm just trying to say is every time there are protests, there's going to be people who take things too far. Doesn't mean that the whole idea behind protest is terrible. And I think that's one thing, the narrative I've been seeing on social media today. Like, oh, this is terrible. No, the few section of fans, like Gary never said, who did that is wrong. But the idea fans have a right to protest. It's as simple as that. They have a right to protest. I'm not asking for the government to make racism legal in football. That's what I'm saying, bro. It's not dumb enough to think everyone is all in bias, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, Kwame, I think he's talking about the racism part. Apples and oranges, but in fact, you're comparing an apple and a damn watermelon. Man, it's commented a lot. I think we should start taking. To also point out, Oname says, especially in Europe, football is between community and culture, but if you notice, most clubs beating national city town names, it's a community thing, all the way to the top 6 clubs, Arsenal, Spurs, and local to North London. People grew up from supporting their township clubs all their lives. So yes, it's a cultural thing, and everything is not always about money. Also, the idea of people doing this for money is a red flag. Dada is a money man. Dada is also a capitalist, I think. I agree with that. I can't even use data internet. Should have 450K a week. Yet says paying for the fans. The fans don't cost 450K. Fans want their clubs to win. They want the club to sign 100 million players, pay top wages, and want to deny. It's about the money. You want bragging rights of winning, of using top dollars to buy top, but know where the money is coming from.
I mean,
That's a good point.
These are the same fans wanting their players to sign Haaland at whatever cost possible. So,
must strike smart enough to strike a careful balance between the financial interest and actual football interest. We are not trying to romanticize anything. We completely understand how money works. It's like the government saying they cannot provide any kind of healthcare for people because it costs money.
No, healthcare is a universal human right. Soccer is not. So
again, Steve Foss Giant claiming that fans are there for the minimum money is a big deal for football. People took it personal that
that's fine. That's fine.
Or talking the club level debt and the millionaire owners taking money out of their club. To some extent, I won't call it that narrative. Apart from me, I've seen that everywhere. David Beckham is one of the patrons of the green and gold movement. Love United, hate Glazers. The guy owns the club. He knows Inter Miami. He knows our club is wrong. Same thing with Gary Neville. I know it's a smaller scale for sure, but they know everything that happens in running the club, right? Gary Neville, they own Salford FC also. They own the club. They know the inner runs of the club. Yes, they might exaggerate some points. They have to. That's all these guys that do it sometimes. It's for hits, because guess what? Now everybody has seen Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher. All those videos go around, Roy Keane, including the other guy. What's his name? Souness, that was on the other side of the fence. Because they need to get hits. But I'm saying, I think a lot of rational people who are making these arguments understand how these things work. UK government didn't prevent Qatari sovereign wealth fund from buying Harrods and a host of historic UK establishments. Why would they now start buying ownership based on foreign ownership because football is special? That's a good point. I know that's a good point. But the reality is, I guess that's where we get into what's ethical and what is not, right? So, the comments are a lot. Comments are flying in. I hope you guys are liking, sharing, and subscribing. Giving us all these comments that we're trying to get to. United fans are deciding to break into the stadium.
What should Arsenal and sports fans be doing
then?
So I personally think United fans are entitled. I think a lot of them are used to. I'm sorry.
Football fans are entitled.
I think United fans are a special category of being entitled because you guys are used to many years of winning titles and being successful. So the moment y'all see things not going your way, they throw a tantrum. I think that's what happened. I don't think
so. I think that's coming from lack of knowledge of the history of what.
No. You guys are not the only
people. If you understand the history of.
It's not history. What was that club? Fuck, I'm trying to remember the club that went into is it Portsmouth? That went into administration last year or 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they threw a riot. I don't know if they break into a stadium. Maybe they did, and someone had to show me. I just feel like you guys are second. You guys are second in the league. You guys are about to win Europa, pushing for Europa. You know what I'm saying? I won't really call you guys unsuccessful. I just look at you guys' financials. You guys are not like the worst financially ran club, but yet there's a chip on you guys' shoulder, and you guys feel like, oh, we got to throw a tantrum because things ain't going our way. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
I think that's a big misconception because guess what? During the Super League break that happened, right? Who was the first 12 fans to be come out and stop a whole boss, stop team? It was Chelsea fans. So are Chelsea fans entitled for doing that?
Yes.
Are Chelsea fans entitled to do that?
No. Yeah, but dude, there was a youth tantrum. There was a youth tantrum on the Super League thing. But what I'm trying to understand is, and I have to say this first is, I don't fully understand, United Glazers and what they're doing and what they're not doing. I'm gonna be completely understand. I'm not well versed in that. But my point is, outside looking in, I can read the financials myself. I don't. Okay. It's not and anyone can comment too. I think United is in a better financial state than Real Madrid and Barcelona, as far as I'm concerned, right?
Yes.
You guys have done well in the past few years. Yeah, you've changed managers. I think what's going on is when Sir Alex Ferguson was there, you guys are just used to constantly winning, and you guys are like seeing the power dynamics is starting to change, and there's a fear. I mean, a lot of it just look very like MAGA heads to me. You know, let's take back our United. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that's a slippery slope. Like the moment fans are doing something like this, that's a slippery slope. I mean, literally, we had to postpone a game. There's a slippery slope, and I feel like I don't know if United fans are really really mad. You know what? Guess what? Maybe then they should go into.
So what do you suggest they do? I'm just going. What do you suggest they do?
No. Would United fans? No, I'm curious here though. Would United fans want a non-investment model where you have an owner that only spends what you guys make? So all of a sudden, then you guys will have to sell a good amount of your players, right?
So let me
automatically be a mid-table club. You guys will automatically be a mid-table club.
Let me correct something. Let me correct something.
Okay.
United only spend what we make. Okay. The Glazers have put 0 penny into Manchester United. I repeat, for people who have not heard this, the Glazers have put $0 into Manchester United. But they've taken out in total for loans, which, okay, that's fine, interest payments, dividends, over $1.5 billion throughout their tenure. Every money we've spent in transfers for player wages from the revenue Manchester United generates.
So you guys generate enough money.
Correct, we do.
To pay for all your players.
Absolutely, we do. And that is why people are mad about it. Because up to that time, we had $0 in debt. £0. Zero.
When was this? When was this?
2005. That's when we took the
2005. Please, in 2005, what were people playing for transfer fees?
I mean, at 2005, the highest transfer was
15 years ago. That's when we were paying like 20 million, 10 million for a player.
Yeah, but you have to also factor inflation and all that, right?
Exactly.
TV money deal. So I mean, what's your point? Where are you driving at?
The point is this: from 2005 to now, a lot has changed.
Correct.
So I mean, we keep going back to the same thing. And my main point here is, if you guys are complaining about, Glazer is an owner, they're doing this wrong, they should do it this way, this is the way it should be. And I'm wondering, like, are you guys fine with being a mid-table club with a responsible financial owner? Because you guys do not have, wait, let me finish. You guys do not have the God-given right to always be winning Premiership every year.
That's what this is, brother. I think a lot of people like you and a lot of people have this misconception about this project. That's not what this is about.
So what is it about?
In 2010, Manchester United were the most dominant team in England. It was us and Chelsea at that time winning the league. Chelsea wins Man United. That's how it was at 2010. And 2010, when they saw that the debt had gone to over £700 million, it triggered the whole green and gold because they saw that. And that is at that point, was at that point that the Glazers decided to refinance. But what did they tell us when they took over in 2005? They were going to do the leverage buyout, they're going to make money, make capital gains, and they'll pay off the debt. They're going to spend more money. That's like, I can literally find the article of when they took over in 2005, all the promises. They failed on all of those promises. And the reason they refinanced the debt from 700 and now it's about 500 is because there was a mass protest in 2010. Like, it's a mass from Champions League games. There were walkouts. There was green and good campaigns. That's literally why they refinanced it, because of the mass protest, because it was all over the news. So the
issue here is, sorry if I'm understanding, the issue here is there's a club that we love that has a lot of debt on his books, and we don't agree with the debt. So pretty much you guys are
also taking money out of the club. So that let me break it down to you. There are multiple issues. There's leverage buyout that has a lot of debt. Owners are taking over 1.5 billion out of the club. Then the last issue will now be, okay, for the last decade, almost a decade, right? They've mismanaged the sporting side. The sporting objectives are not getting hit. Manchester United has not been in a proper title challenge.
So that's my point. Why is it?
For a decade. But
why is it United's God-given right to be?
Now you want to ignore point 1 and 2 and just go to 3. Why? I don't understand. I'll give you 2 points already.
I'm not disagreeing.
You know that, right?
What I'm trying to understand is, sorry, what I'm trying to understand is, okay, I agree with you on the debt issue. Let's just say, okay, the debt issue. And I'm also going to assume that a lot of United fans are savvy Wall Street guys and they understand interest debt payment. Sure, y'all can have that. Fine, let them complain. But what I'm trying to understand is, why is it United's God-given right to be in a title challenge every year? Like, where is it written in the tenets that, look, United has to be challenging for the title every year?
So can I answer that question? It's very, very simple. Every other club, hold on, every other club, right, in our brackets, revenue-wise, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona, who else? Those are good revenue brackets that you can really think of. Because you guys, yours is different. I keep telling you, you people are like, you are funded by owner.
Okay.
Every other club in our revenue bracket have
see.
won major titles.
I see.
People in lower tier than us, you guys, Liverpool, have won major titles in this past decade than we have.
So if I'm understanding,
it's an expectation because it's a sporting objective that you should be hitting.
Okay. So if I'm understanding so if I'm understanding you correctly, based on your financial status as a club, you should be winning titles.
You should major titles, you should.
So that being said, once again, too, if you were to reduce your financial status, if Man United was to kind of work hard, they get an owner that pays. If you have an owner now that comes in and say, you know what, look guys, we're not going to be in this revenue bracket that we are. We're going to pay down our debt. We're going to be fiscally responsible, and we're not going to challenge for the title. Bam, problem solved, right?
No, Dada, you're not listening to me. I'm saying you already have enough money. The club already has enough money that runs that they can use the money the club runs to actually make proper decisions and recruit properly and make better decisions. The Glazers are taking money out of the club. That's what I'm saying.
No. They're taking money out, but it's money that they invested. Am I wrong?
No, it's debt.
Why would they take money out?
They're taking money from revenue, from the club's revenue. That's what I'm saying.
But so what I'm saying, so let's say, so the Glazers have retained earnings, right? And they're taking out their retained earnings. Isn't that money? I'm confused.
It's their money, but guess what though? That they didn't put any penny into the club. Do you understand that point? The fact that they did not put the club is in debt, right? They borrowed on the assets of the club.
Yes.
So all they are doing is whatever revenue they get, right? They pay themselves their dividends. They take some money out to pay interest on loans. They financed a couple of times, and that's what they've been doing for the last amount of years, rather than some other clubs, i.e., Liverpool and some other models where their owners put in money into the club to fund transfers. The Glazers don't do that. Right now, the Glazers debt is so much that every year now, as from last season, Manchester United has to make 65 million profit. We have to make that. If now they give us 2 years, there's a buyer office, there's a get out clause to that. They give us 2 years, even though they can call in, they can call in some of those loans. They can call in it.
So loans file is fine. But anyways, so maybe what I should have done prior to come to this forecast is better understand United's financial model and our and to be honest, like I'll take your word for it. I'm not versed in that at all. But but one thing I do not understand is this whole idea that if I'm making X amount of revenue, I should be challenging for the title. I mean,
you should, because you should buy. You have access to get the best players, right? You can pay.
So then this goes back to money and football. This literally goes back to money and football.
I agree with you. I said they go hand in hand. If you are making this level of money, you should be hitting this sporting objective. I agree with you when you said it, but you are trying to romanticize and think, people just think it's about. No, it goes hand in hand. We do.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, is if United gets its financial books in order,
right?
I mean, because if it gets financial books in order, that may come at the expense of not winning titles, right? I'm just saying, like, say for example, you get a new owner, right? You get a new
remember that you get all the debt is paid off because the boss, they've like right now, Glazers have run the club by I think 4 billion. So the ex-owner comes in, pays that 4 billion. It's part of the debt, the 500 and something million.
Yeah, but whoever is buying the club does not have 4 billion in cash now. They have to go borrow money from somewhere, right? They have to finance it with some debt and equity now. Like,
but not leverage buyout. They can finance the debt for themselves, not leverage buyout, not by putting the debt onto the club. onto the club's assets, which is what the Glazers did.
Yeah, what I'm saying is this though. Okay, there are two ways, right? So
Yeah.
let's say United. What is United worth these days? Like
$4 billion. That's
United is
market.
worth 4 billion,
4 billion.
right?
Yeah.
So United is worth 4 billion. If I'm going to buy United today, right, I either have to go borrow money, right?
Okay.
So let's just assume, I have 10 billion in my account, right? I'm not going to use 4 billion of my 10 billion to go buy United. No, what I'll probably do is finance 60% of that with debt, and then finance the rest with my own money, right? At the end of the day, all is just happening is debt is leaving one. You're repackaging the debt. Someone's got to get paid one way or the other. So that means that if I also leverage out and buy United based on like 60-40, 60% debt, 40% equity, right? Then all of a sudden I'm going to be like, look, I have this huge debt payment that I got to pay, right? I have this equity in this company. I mean, this thing. I'm not about to give you your money to go buy Haaland. So there has to be a period, a stretched period of where, right, I have to pay down my debt payment on the club. So there has to be at least 5-6 years of where you guys ain't winning nothing. Do the fans understand that?
They do, but the difference is guess what they've done. That is what you said right now is the FSG model. What the Glazers did, they loaded the debt on United. That's what they did, and right now, like they are using whatever revenue we get in order to pay the debt, and they're taking money out. They're not even doing okay. You know what? Let's focus for 3-4 years and focus on just debt payment. That's not what they're doing. They're paying themselves dividends consistently, rather than focus on paying down debt.
As long as you pay your interest payment, now who cares? Like for example, I have a mortgage on my house, right? I'm paying my mortgage every month. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna go use extra. You know what I'm saying? Like,
for that extra money that you're using to pay for like dividends, they could put it back into the club. They could build a better stadium. Manchester United, as big as we don't, when they do the VAR thing, you watch it. United is one of the few that don't have the VAR that tells you when it's offside. We don't have it. Big Manchester United, Dada. I want you to think about that. We don't have that. Like the whole VAR board thing, right? We don't have that.
What box? Sorry.
VAR, they do VAR checks and they show it on the monitor, like that big screen monitor.
Yeah.
Don't have that. Old Trafford, when I was there in January 2020, it was leaking. Old Trafford was leaking. These guys have not invested into the assets of the club. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I think that the part of
how much was United worth in 2005?
790 million.
So they've taken a 790 million club, they've made it worth 4 billion. But how did they do that without being savvy though? Like, you know what, to be very fair.
That's why you do it. I don't like to tell argument. I've never said they're not savvy. One thing you have to understand also is as football has grown exponentially, United has grown too. Exactly. The TV money, but all this have grown also. So that's what's happened. And
so how many trophies did they win on that Glazer?
I could not remember. It's probably like 10, maybe.
God damn, that's a lot.
That's true. That's all on Alex Ferguson. Now you're getting into disingenuous territory. But that's all on Alex Ferguson. That's nothing to do with Glazers.
No. You can't.
Let's take comments. It has nothing to do with them. I'm being honest with you. It has nothing to do with them. They just rode on a successful machine that was there. And guess what? When that machine left, which is Alex Ferguson and David Gill, everything has fallen apart.
No. Or maybe what happened was when Alex Ferguson left, other people too invested wisely, right? I mean,
but with the investing, no, that's fine, that's fair, that's true.
I mean, and they also got better, right? I mean, you can't assume sustained success forever. It's just not going to work.
Nobody says sustained success, but not this drop off. This drop off has been a lot, Dada. And that's the reason why everybody Manchester gets this level of criticism, right? Because you can as well put that on like any other club. Why has Chelsea attained this sustained success for 20 years? Why? Exactly.
Right? I mean, we've done okay.
Chelsea has consistently been successful under Abramovich, right? So
that's a different business model. Anyways, okay. Kwame, no, I'm not going there. No.
Do you think another can invalidate the fact that
remember the first point that I made when I wrote my piece is do not equate this to social injustice protest. So no.
I'll be interested to tell you to understand why. I have an understanding of why you're not equating, but I just want to understand your point.
You want to understand my point?
Mm-hmm.
Because people looting, or no, not even let me say people looting, like having violence in the name of social injustice is not the same as a football club. Like there's just those two things are not going to be in the same conversation. Not yesterday, today, never. Those are completely two different things. I mean,
Why?
yeah,
I'm curious. I want to know why.
that's real anger. That's real anger. That's real injustice, right? Today, Chelsea can go bankrupt and never cease to exist. Like life's ain't gonna be lost. So let's not even. Nah, come on. Let's
But
not.
people lose their jobs.
So what?
People lose their jobs though.
Yeah, they're gonna find another job. They're gonna be all right.
Okay. I think that I understand what you're trying to say. When people say that.
Football club has nothing to do with social injustice. I'm sorry. No.
I think that's an opinion.
No, that's not an opinion. That's not an opinion. That's a matter of fact. I mean, I don't know how you equate Manchester United being mismanaged to black people getting shot on the street.
No. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying the overall idea, the analogy. Nobody's saying like obviously there's not the same weight. You cannot equate that. When people say that, they're talking about the overall analogy of when people say, "Oh, protest because of people doing bad things." You now say, "Oh, protest should not happen."
No.
They're throwing away the whole idea.
I think protests are fine. I don't have any issue with protests.
Okay.
No.
That's what he's trying to say. He's just making an analogy.
I don't know where he got the idea of no. I mean, football fans have been protesting forever, like banners, all those things. I mean, no, those are part of protests. There's nothing wrong with that. But like what we saw today, that was not a protest. That was just a bunch of.
That's not the 10,000 people though. These are people who came to the stadium and decided to take, because they're angry, go and take and loot and do things that
I don't think their anger is justified. Their anger is not justified. I'm sorry. I mean,
okay. So Chucky says, "Come on, based on what I love lots of folks shoot up protest. You should have blocked entry to the ground. I'm all for that. Just watching people breaking in is what is condemning." That's fair. That's a fair point. I mean, but I think people should also understand that. What I keep telling people is like when people are pushed continuously, things like this are inevitable to happen. Whether you condone it or not is fair. I don't condone violence, obviously, but I'm saying this is a fan base that pretty much our ownership has been mocking the fans. That's why what happened with this Super League thing, to the extent that we're obviously part of it, and they now leak the press information saying, "Oh, Woodward wasn't part of it. In fact, Woodward was against the idea of Super League." Like, how dumb do they think United fans are? And this is kind of PR spins they've been doing for years, things like this. So, I think that's just what all of this has been. Man, we've missed so many posts. Can we keep up with those comments? I'm going to just pick a couple of comments. My goodness, these comments are okay. I'll just rush through comments. We don't have to address them. Just rush through them. Protest on violence and someone fine wins, and that's the crux of everything that happened today. And I think people are too concerned with "I want to be right" without actually adding context to conversations now. Since you compared apple and watermelons, I'm just following along. Saying my point is that you may not and must not solely focus on money.
And I agree.
I don't think anyone was fine with it though. Can you point out one person who condoned the violence? It's true, man. I don't understand this. Well, I think we're getting this whataboutery level in arguments. It's not the time of winning trophies anymore. If that were the case, the insurrection would have happened since 2014-15. Exactly. I mean, United fans protesting even when they were successful under Ferguson. This is not about chip on their shoulders. Massive misconception. Imagine yourself leader of 45 record that is now underperformed under your management. Do you think stakeholders will smile and say, "Well done"? Exactly. Absolutely. Talking about slippery slope. What about the club owners were putting football on when they were jumped on the ESL train without consulting players, managers, or fans?
Yeah, that's a dumb idea.
Look through where you see the condemning and liking percent comparable. Arsenal are profitable in 10th though. All the Australian transfers to receive United owed $0 when Glazers took over.
In 2005. In 2005.
Dada says what? I think you're playing devil's advocate. Yeah. Dada likes to do that, Mr. Contra. If you can't right now, the match game fans, they refer to as the guy saying that in mind that you rather United get relegated to the Glazers are forced to sell. Yeah, I think it's that this was the final nail. Okay, then can anyone if you state an actual alternative to current international structure and how it should be funded? I'll talk about that in the end. I kind of said what I thought would work.
No, I'm not. So, no, so someone is a contrarian if they don't agree with you. That's not a contrarian. I'm actually think I'm probably in the majority.
United struggle to beat PSG and Chelsea. That sugar that is likely to be difficult. Is that what United fans want? Liverpool, Liverpool won the league and Champions League without having a sugar daddy. People need to stop this idea, please. Bayern won also without a sugar daddy. So I mean, we have multiple like examples of people winning without having a sugar daddy. Dada Glazer Olamide. I just understand the need to defend billionaire owners who would make a clear profit they saw United tomorrow. FS, for example, bought for 300 million and now value is valued by 3 billion. If they sold tomorrow, they would make fantastic profit. Same for United. Start thinking of good owners. Would address if there are any good owners, then I'll answer that question about suggestions. I mean, again, just to be clear, I don't think there's any silver bullet, thing in this thing. But I think people should be able to, express their opinion. Dada, this is not a discussion on the business masterclass. This is a football discussion. You're telling this business of football is not feasible. It should be business plus football discussion. Dada knows this. Dada knows this.
I know what. No, I think a lot of people don't. That's the thing.
Business discussion. Well, I think it's slightly a little bit condescending. I think a lot of people do. I think it's slightly
condescending. What? Sorry, what?
I think a lot of people do not know that there's a sporting and business objective.
No, not that. I think a lot of people. No, I'm not being condescending. No, I disagree. I think a lot of people are trying to. A lot of people are trying to underplay how complicated this is. That is what I'm saying. I think. So sorry. What I'm trying to, and I apologize if I come off, condescending or people are not saying the business. No, that is not my intent. What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, there are a lot of parties involved, and this is very complicated because keep in mind, remember when players were asked to take a pay cut?
Yeah.
Right, during the COVID time or when things got
bad. I remember that.
They didn't. They didn't. So how come fans don't hold players accountable the same way they hold owners? Because here's the thing. You know what's very interesting? I remember. Let me make a point. William. I remember when William went to Arsenal, and a Chelsea fan goes, oh yeah. I see. Ola brings up a good point, and I'll address that. 1 second, please. So I remember when William went to Arsenal, right? So when William went to Arsenal, there was a Chelsea fan that said, "Oh, why didn't you stay at Chelsea? This is the club that loves you." Blah 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 blah. And you went to Arsenal for more money. What we always forget is these folks, man. They have mouth to feed. That's the thing. Like they have short career span. They have to make as much money as possible because they have a retirement plan that they have to worry about. We always conveniently forget that. We always say, "Oh, why didn't you kiss the bars?" Blah 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 blah. The same clubs we throw these players under a bus in a heartbeat. The same players they are like, "Man, you need to die for my club." It's the same clubs where players deep in form. They'll get rid of them in a heartbeat. They don't give them strong financial backing. You know a lot of players who have gone broke in the name of supporting the club. Where are these same goddamn fans? Why didn't these fans raise money for these players? If they are so great fandoms, if they're ready to die for their club, when all these all these players were going broke, why didn't fans get together and say, "You know what? You're a great servant to my club. What I'm going to do for you today, because I love my club so much, and this is not a business to me, I'm going to fund you and make sure you're okay." Where are the fans doing that? That is my point. My point is
I think it's unfair.
It's very easy for everyone to look at this thing from their own perspective. We're expecting players to break their necks. We're expecting players to go above and beyond because you know what? This is a club that my dad has been supporting for hundreds of years. We also forget that, man, these players, the moment they stop playing for your club, you don't give a shit about them. All the goals, all the memories, all the joys, all the smiles that they brought to you is a flash in the pan, and you moved on, and you're expecting them not to move on. So that is what I'm saying. My point is this: it's not. It's so hard to always play the emotional, the sport part of it when there's a lot of money involved. When there's lives at stakes. There are people who depend on these things to feed their family, and we can make the argument that players are overpaid. But guess what, though? They're paid at market rates. They have a lifestyle that matches their market rate, and they have kids, they have grandkids, they have college funds, just like you and I, that they have to worry about.
Right, absolutely.
If fans are not getting behind them, and I could be wrong, or maybe some fans somewhere have done a lot of things for players.
Yep.
Aguero scored that winning goal that brought City glory. 5 years from now, if Aguero is broke in the street of Buenos Aires, I doubt, and I could be wrong, I doubt City players will forego their season tickets to go feed Aguero's children. They won't.
I see your point. I just think that gets into like a different realm of conversation, right?
Why though? If we are truly a cultural icon and we set up on this beautiful game and this kumbaya moment, why do we ignore that aspect? And I'm gonna get to our last point about should clubs play a role in fighting racism, right? Was that it?
Yeah.
You say shouldn't be real. That's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry. No, that is not what I'm saying. No. I'm not saying football is not part of social justice. I genuinely believe, and this is me going to my personal belief, I believe that corporations exist primarily to make their environment, the community in which they operate, better, and not just to turn a profit. The same way every music, art, every fabric of society plays a role in making society better, and football also has to play that role. But what I acknowledge, what I think I'm comfortable with is there are a lot of stakeholders, and this thing is a lot more complicated than these. And also, too, football has sold its soul a long time ago. And I don't think, things like UCL, we should sell it a lot further. But I think that, you know what, that train has left the station. Now it's all about how do we manage it to where it doesn't diverge away from what it was 100 years ago. That's my point.
And that's my point. And that's where I like to. That's where I like to. We're about to wrap this up because I have to go by next 2 to 3 minutes. And that's where I kind of I lie also Dada. It's like we know that train has left a long time ago, right? Corporatization has taken over all of sports. It has. That's the truth. This corporatization is a problem. There's no proper distribution of wealth. That's another problem. We know all of this. We do. Most rational fans who do their research do and who pay attention to. We know all of this. What I'm saying is what you just said. If fans do not protest, if there's no checks and balances brought by the government regarding ownership, specifically things like leverage buyouts, and the other part of it is another thing, like states, sports washing projects, all of that. There are no checks and balances. Some of these things, like where does it end? Where does it really end? Because it's just going to keep going further and further. So let's just take the last minute comments, then we can wrap up. Liverpool won everything, but they can't afford the backup and assist for Leicester won, you can't sustain without spending. I don't like disingenuous comments. I never said you cannot afford sustain success without spending. Yes, you can. Liverpool have money to spend. If Liverpool spend correctly next season, Liverpool can still win major titles. I'm saying Manchester United have spent more than Liverpool, and during this last close to 10 years, Liverpool has achieved more than Manchester United. That's a fact. So I think that's Chiuso. I don't do disingenuous statements, please. And we all know this. Honestly, Ola says Chiuso, Liverpool could definitely afford a center back. Ola has responded. The owners are just being tired of anticipating on money. They thought we could ride out the crisis until they finally find one shopping. That's why we're vexing for them. I mean, it's kind of very obvious at this point. Well done. I did do justice to the misconceptions. Who are good owners, Dada? Let's wrap up. Who do you
Good
think are good
owners.
owners? Example of a
So,
good owner.
so
Name one. Just name one. Let's end on that. Name one.
Okay. So just lastly, I just want to say, I apologize if I come off condescending. I'm not trying to say, folks don't understand the business. I'm actually just really looking to learn in the sense that, like, when you have a complicated situation like this, how did you handle it? And at the end of the day, we all have greed to a certain extent. And I compel everyone to. There's a book by the guy who started Whole Foods. It's called The Ethical Capitalist. I think it's a good book to read. It kind of goes over how you can be a capitalist and still be ethical. And I genuinely do believe that unchecked capitalism and unchecked greed will ruin any society. So while you have owners who are always like profit, they need to be checked. And I agree, they need to be checked. They need to be held accountable, because if not, if profit takes over football objective, football dies. If football objectives take over profit, then profit dies. Right?
Absolutely.
I think there should be a decent balance. If you can't do 50-50, I think you should do 55-45. 55 on the profit side, 45 on the football side. That's where I stand. And I don't know where anyone stands. So in terms of good owners, Roman, for me, one. Just because of I like his personal business model. And I also agree with Ayo. A lot of what Roman is doing in Chelsea is really, I think there's a bit of PR component to it.
Yeah.
I also think there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think too is understood that football is all about the community, right? And in order for you to be profitable, in order for you to reach objective, you have to be holistic in your approach. So I think that's one thing that's done well. I think American owners naturally struggle in Europe. And the reason why the Glazers have struggled, and because throughout this whole thing, I've not criticized them. The reason why they struggle is I have a fundamental problem with the American model of sports. But the American model of sports works very well in America because, that's another topic for another day.
Exactly. Let's not go there. There's just multiple components to it. Yes, I agree.
So I think the owners of Man City are also people that I have respect for. And you're probably seeing a pattern here. All people, that's not it. I think two things. As a good owner, you have to be able to do three things very well. One, you have to have a clear vision, right? You have to have a clear vision of what your objectives are, right?
Okay.
Two, you also have to have a long-term sustainability model. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Man City, they did something that was impressive 3 years ago. They invested in some club here in New York, right? Now you can talk about why they're doing what they're doing, but they've seen the bigger picture. And number three, they've realized that success buys you time, and fans are more forgiving when you're successful. So I think those are the three things you need. You need a very clear vision of here's what I'm trying to do. Chelsea has been consistent in its model from day one. Like from the day Roman took over, you've seen the blueprint. You can almost predict what Chelsea was going to do. When Lampard was fucking up, you could predict what Chelsea was going to do. So we have a clear-cut model on what we're doing. Two, there's a sustainability model in the sense that, like, here's how we're going to build out the club. Here's how we're going to do outreach. And here's how we're going to go about this. And the third part of all is trophies and success. What trophies and success does for you is it buys you time. So when you have rough moments and when you have rough patches that you're always going to have, one or two trophies just kind of buys you a little opportunity to get it right. So I think those are the criteria of a good owner. But at the end of the day, too, when you have when you're a billionaire, it's easier for you to be a good owner. So let's not forget that too.
My theory and response to that, they are not good owners, and that's like a intro to probably our next podcast. They are not good owners, but we could delve into that in our next podcast.
What makes a good owner? What makes a good owner? What's one thing that makes a good owner?
No, you've kind of hit it. So I think you are looking at it from like how to run the club, like how owner runs the club, all of that, So yes, you're right. You hit it, profitability, hitting your sporting objectives and business objectives. You hit those points. I'm just saying from the point of where football fans look at owners, like the source of money, all of that. That's where I'm kind of coming from. They are really not good owners, to be honest. If you want to delve into that of the reason behind why they own the clubs, especially like these super clubs, they are really not good owners. But that's why that's a topic for the sport. Yeah.
So one last thing though before we leave is among fans, right?
Yeah.
They're very heterogeneous, like I mean, just look at the forum on any given day. You can have like fans argue with each other. If fans were to own the club, how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage you as a United fan? There was a time when you didn't care for Ole, and there were people that were ready to die for him, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage things like that? I mean, I don't know. To be very, I don't know. I'm probably going to do more research on how buying and the rest of them do. I think it's very democratic. They vote on all these things, but or maybe they have like really good governance in place.
Yes.
Really good structure. I mean, I genuinely don't know.
I think to answer that's a very complicated question, and that's a full podcast where we break down all of that. Full podcast, like governance structure, profitability, all of that. We'll break that down for everybody watching. Dada, thanks for joining.
Hopefully, I'm not this capitalist villain where.
Somebody has called you, Dada Glazer, and I think that's what I'll start calling you.
Selling children.
Dada Glazer.
Selling children into slavery for profit.
So everyone joining while we've come to the end of the pod. Please. The YouTube is Footy Fantasy, FOOTIE Fantasy. Like, share, subscribe, engage in the comments, and thank you for joining. And we are out.
Oh yeah.